a choice right now, between fear and love. It's just a rock.
Out of the dark night of ignorance and into the shining light of truth.
Expanding reality.
A population of citizens capable of critical thinking.
We don't see things as they are, we see them as we are.
There's a level of reality where everything dissolves into an ocean of energy.
We empower our experience by insisting on our authenticity.
That's very profound. Very.
Expanding reality.
Welcome to Expanding Reality. I am your host, Brandon Thomas. On this incredibly empowering episode, Bree Divine and Joe Lustica come by to talk all things empowerment, freedom, and sovereignty. To up the game a little bit, if you check the link in the show descriptions where our guests can be found, you can also find the link for their Trust membership, and they have an offer for you, the audience member here. Go down, type the promo code EXREAL at checkout, EXREAL. Get 10% off of your first month there, guys. Come join us for that thing. If you're not ready to do all that yet, that's okay. Check the link down there to support your favorite show. Be a little bit more empowered. Joe, Bree, and I go far with the additional information and empowerment in the afterthought here. So that feels like your next step. Absolutely go for it. These folks are wonderful, so I'm not going to spend any more time here setting anything up. Just want to let you guys know about the X-Real discount for 10% off of the Trust membership, and I will see you there if you're joining. Beyond that, guys, let me get out of the way here and just go ahead and introduce Bree Divine and Joe Lustica. Welcoming to the show, we have Bree Divine and Joe Lustica hanging out. It is so cool to see you both. I am grateful to have you. This is a big deal for the show. This is a big deal for the audience and for the listeners, and you are all going to find out why here. This is part of the Sovereign Ranger series. This is going to be one of the more empowering episodes that will be aired on this channel. So I can already tell you that. So no pressure here, both of you, but I already know what you bring to the table. And so I'm grateful for this conversation in advance. So if you don't mind mentioning to the audio only audience here that we do have a video version of this, as well as there is going to be an afterthought after this conversation. It's a wonderful way to support your favorite show. It is located down in the show description. Also want to mention before we get going in this thing, the new journal videos that we have up. It's on Rumble, BitChute, YouTube, Facebook. Redigital Publishing is going wide with that journal series, and we have a whole video series to introduce them to you, and grateful to do that, guys. It was a monster project, and go check it out. Also want to remind everyone that all the ways to find our two incredibly cool guests here will be located down in the show description, the Rumbles, the TikToks, all of the things. All right, now let's get to this shit, okay? So, Bree, if you don't mind, in your own words, tell us a little bit more about you.
Okay, great. I'm a body worker of 15 years. And I love it. I'm currently still a body worker. I've pursued this sovereignty route about 3 years ago and ended up meeting Joe Lustica when I wanted to learn how to really apply the things that I felt intuitively were right. And one of those things were like taxes. I should not be paying taxes. And Joe helped me with that in his private classes. And then I hired him for one-on-one mentoring. And then he gave me so much confidence that I'm like, I really think that we can start teaching this to people. And that's kind of what led us here. And we've done over 20 classes since December. And we now have our own communities independently, and we're working interdependently. And we've built up so much excitement within it that we're just so grateful to be here sharing this with you.
It's incredible. Just like you both, you're examples for what's possible in the community, not only taking your freedom back or declaring it because it's already yours. And there's a whole psychology behind this as well that's fascinating that you two both possess. But it's also an independent group of people getting together to make sure that they independently take care of themselves independently together. It's a fascinating community that's just singularly empowering, but it's a community of folks empowering themselves to empower themselves. Again,
creating leaders.
Creating leaders, yes. Beautiful. Which, of course, they say, I'll go first, not follow me, right? Joe Lustica, Dude, I watch you on TikTok all the time. I adore you, dude. You're a musician. You're a brother. You and I had an amazing conversation the other day, fanboying out on all of our favorite music and stuff. So, dude, it's wonderful to introduce you to the audience and just bro to bro, man, I'm grateful you're here. So please tell us a little bit more about yourself, man, in your own words.
Well, thank you for the invite. I appreciate being here. And well, I'm a musician. I've been playing music since professionally since 1998. So it's been a while. And I mean, me learning about the legal system, how this thing operates and works, it actually started when I was about 18 years old. And I had gotten into, well, I mean, I got into a little bit of trouble, right, with some law enforcement, and I ended up going to jail, okay, when I was about 21. And essentially what it was for talking. So it kind of woke me up to something is deeply wrong in our country, because the First Amendment very clearly says that you have freedom of speech, and I was not afforded that right. And a judge denied me that right and then had me thrown in jail for it, for exercising that right. I didn't threaten anybody. I didn't try to harm anyone with my speech. All I did was yell as a reaction to something else that happened, and I ended up in jail for it. So that kind of woke me up to something's wrong in our country, and I wanted to get to the bottom of why I could go to jail for essentially talking. And that led me down this road to where we're at today.
I'm grateful. I'm grateful you were infringed upon so much so you could feel so violated so you could come out and empower all of us, man. That's, you know, it's one of those hindsight things where you're like, God, that sucked at the time. But if it hadn't have, you know, what would you be doing? I mean, you know, but what was your first song you learned on the guitar, by the way?
Oh, it might have been About a Girl by Nirvana.
Okay. It's not Smoke on the Water like everybody. You just go the traditional
No,
route.
I learned that years later. No, I was
fair enough. As you were empowering others, you're like, I'll get to Smoke on the Water eventually.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
So with this then, what would you say is, besides the motivation for people to jump into declaring their own rights and shaking off that chain that they've been chained to, you know, forever, what's the first step in this? Besides getting pissed off and recognizing it, what is the next actionable step?
Learn the language. Legalese is its own language, right? So I say like legal English is one way I put it down in documents. I say that this is legal English, and I'll even cite what dictionary it comes from. But the point is that that language is its own language. It's very different. I mean, like if you're talking to your friend on the street, and some guy across the street does something, you go, "What did that person do over there?" You know. Like, that was weird, right? And you go, yeah. Now, that conversation seems totally fine, but in a legal sense, that word person is a landmine of legality and other things. A person does not mean like a man or woman in a legal realm at all. And see, stuff like that will throw people off. Words like corporation will wake people up to what's going on. You go look at that word in a law dictionary and you go, what the heck is going on here? And then you start reading through these definitions and you start finding out, just from learning the language, it starts to reveal the truth of what they've been doing to everybody. And they've been using words to deceive everybody. Okay. I mean, if anyone's ever been to court, right, you hired a lawyer, right? You're like, hey, I need some help. I got some issue going on. The lawyer goes in there, and then the lawyer, the prosecutor, and the judge are talking, and you're like, I don't even know what they're saying. People just get confused. They're like, I have no idea what they're talking about. None, right? And anyone who's been to court, you know, in the past will say, yeah, I've experienced that, where they're totally lost in the conversation, they have no idea what's going on. And their lawyer will turn around and like whisper something to them. Oh, it's okay. Don't worry about that. We're going to do this. This is what we're doing now. Right? That's because they're speaking a different language.
And it's so important on this to not outsource your ability to decipher that language, because it determines what occurs with you.
Mm-hmm.
True. And I believe that the law only applies when we're talking about the interpretation of the law. And so your interpretation is going to be what trumps or sees it through. And I wanted to piggyback off of what Joe's saying with where to start. Also starting, because, you know, you hear teachers say, you need to read You hear that. It's like, well, read what? Like, read where? Like, how? But you just hear people just read. Well, start where your biggest pain is. That's where you start. So start where your pain is. And then from there, so that you can free yourself from that pain. And then that's where you learn the language. So if you're wondering where to start reading and how, well, start with what you need to free yourself with first. And mine was taxes. I was getting letters from the IRS debt collectors. And I was like, okay, I need to focus. I'm thinking about discharge. I'm thinking about how to get funds and all, money was something that I was really attracted to. But then I was like, oh, I've got something nipping on my heels right now. And it's a little too close for comfort. And it's the IRS. So maybe I need to start with that and learn that language first.
Fascinating. It's a brilliant point that you make. It's just start there. So what was your next step with that? Did you go straight ROE after that?
I was on a call. I believe it was in one of Joe's classes because he was doing lives. Joe does a bunch of free stuff on his private Telegram. And in one of those calls, they were describing what a revocation of election was and how to write one. And I just took mental note. I have a really great memory, thankfully. And I just did everything that they said on that free call. And I sent out that affidavit and the letters stopped. And it's been 2 years. I have been on the irs.gov with my real ID. I did get a real ID. I don't care what people say. And I was able to see that I don't have any debts. I don't owe anything. I'm in good standing with the IRS.
It's just simply assumed that you're part of this until you say that you're not. Because if your birth certificate, I mean, is that accurate? Is it, if you were never given a birth certificate, do you think that you could avoid all of this and just skate free? Or do you think there's plenty of ways to contract around here?
You can contract. The IRS code stipulates who has a tax liability, and it says citizens of the United States and residents of the United States, right, have to pay taxes. So a resident doesn't necessarily have to have a birth certificate. A citizen of the United States does, but a resident does not.
That's why that non-resident alien status is sort of important, that ambassador at large. Do you think that that's the best way to go?
Well, the status name, it's the same thing. It just has a different term depending on which agency you're talking to. When you're talking with the IRS, it is non-resident alien. When you're dealing with the Department of State, it's called national. When you're dealing with law enforcement, it's foreign national. Okay, these are all mean different things, right? They all sound like different things, but they are the exact same thing.
It's like when people in the North say pop or soda, when they mean Coke, like we do in the South. Do you want a Coke? It doesn't mean I want a Coke. It means I want a Dr. Pepper. You know what I mean? It's like you have to learn the language of what region you're in and how to apply it, even though you're talking about the same damn thing.
Right.
So
there are all these perceived authorities,
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, the govern me harder shit all over the place. Govern me harder, daddy. Yeah. So within this, and I saw one of your videos on, I've watched a lot of your videos on Rumble there, Bub. And one of the ones you were talking about was when, yes, all of a sudden you're now it's assumed that person means a corporation or entity. You have to specify it otherwise. And that's fascinating to me. It's the same thing as with the Banking Act, when you were talking about that the sales tax is just sort of implied to everything, even though it's not a federal area. It's treated like a federal area but nobody does anything about it. It's right there laid out in front, but it's all mixed in together. And it is this sort of overarching, you know what it feels like? It feels like oppressive, crushing soil. And you're sort of working your way up through this muck. And as you get a little bit further, you get a little bit more light and you get a little more nutrients and access to water and you get a little stronger because you've had to work your way through something challenging. At what point did you both, or have you felt this yet, where you broke through the soil to where you felt like, oh God, I'm through, I'm out of the muck of it, I feel free?
Can I go first?
Please.
It was when I realized who I am, in contrast to who I am not. That's it.
Will you go deeper on that?
Yeah. Just like Joe was saying, knowing the language, I'm not a person. I'm not a U.S. citizen like I thought I was. Whenever there's a discussion on who I am in relation to someone trying to get money from me, or saying I'm in a contract with them, or trying to contract with me, depending, no matter what the jurisdiction is, I'm always coming back to center and asking, well, who am I and who do they presume that I am? And it is my duty to inform them of the truth. And my truth is who I am, period. There's no other truth than that. My truth is who I am. And that is what broke me through. And that is what gets me to these other places, because I don't think I'm more intelligent in any other aspect in life, especially in sovereignty, besides the fact of who I am. I'm still discovering a lot of new, beautiful things, and that are very intimidating, but exciting nonetheless.
But you've got the confidence because of what you just said. Confidence is a series of successes. And once you know that you believe in you to follow the steps through, to then just check the boxes of things like revocation of election. You're saying, yeah, done. And now those letters stop. And now that's a little more freeing. That's amazing. So
yeah, you got to have a mentor. That's another big thing. You don't just because you can trip up even after revocation of election. What do you do after that? You could accidentally perjure yourself unknowingly. So having a mentor and a community is huge.
Huge. Joe, what do you think of all this, bud?
Well, I mean, one thing is that I feel like there's different levels of freedom, right? Freedom from things is not what the founding fathers had in mind. They just had freedom, like a blank slate, freedom. There's freedom. And what we're doing today is because of all the different layers of restrictions that have been put on top of Americans over the last 160 years or so, 170 years. It's been freedom from, right? We have to free from things. So I feel like as you learn and you study, you kind of pop out of certain areas. In some areas, you're still there's still something you have to bust through, right? But as you do that, it gets easier and easier to go through, right? It's kind of like the thick soil underneath, and you're just kind of digging out. And as you get closer to the top, it gets easier.
Yeah, less resistance. It makes sense. Plus, you have momentum at that point, and then they're hand in hand. The environment's a little more forgiving, but you've got a lot of momentum in action. That's incredible. I'm just so fired up by this, guys. I just absolutely love speaking to you guys and just talking about this. It really fires me up. Okay, so levels of freedom. Let's talk about the three then. So you have the ones that you're freeing yourself from. Let's break this down because I love this. The one you're freeing yourself from. What's the next one?
Well, I mean, freeing yourself from, it could be, everyone has a different situation, right? So some people, they're like in Bree's situation, taxes was a problem. Like now she's limiting herself to being able to be more financially successful because of the fact that there's this threat coming from this agency saying you owe us money because you're working hard and being successful. And first of all, that's rule number one of what you should not do to somebody who is, you don't penalize somebody for being successful, right? You penalize those who are harming success, right? That should be how it operates, but our system is backwards. So it doesn't operate like that. All right, so they penalize the people who are being more successful and obviously true success comes from helping others, right? When you're helping others, you're imbued with success yourself, right? However it may be. But the way they see it is that you owe us for being successful, and that's a danger. Some people have problems with mortgages, they're in foreclosure. So their breakthrough is how do I handle this? How do I stop the foreclosure? How do I keep my home? All right. Maybe some people it's, just any kind of maybe credit card debts, right? They're buried in credit card debts. Maybe they got a lot of legal issues with traffic or, some other kind of legal issue going on. So it does depend on the individual. Okay. And that's where their focus is going to be. Like what Bree was saying earlier, it's what's important to you? What's the thing that's burning? What's the fire that's burning, right? You got to put that fire out first. Then from there, that's going to lead you to what's next for you. So it is an individual thing.
Well, and it's brilliant. Just like Bree said, it's energetic as well, because then it seems so, because then, okay. And this gets back to sort of the psychology of fearing not being able to attract money. Just put it in psychology terms, right? It's that you will keep money away from you because you grew up in a household where your dad saw somebody drive a Ferrari and be like, oh, he must be a dickhead. He had to have done whatever X, Y, and Z to have that money. But in the same way, it feels this with our freedoms and elations as well, is that, well, if we want to be successful, you're going to be penalized for it. So if you get more success, so then some people may cart before the horse and think, oh, when I have the money, I'll free myself up. And then that's when I will go ahead and check these things off the list. But ironically, that's what's keeping you from them, is because you have such energetic barriers holding you down. Even subconsciously, you won't make moves because you feel that something's going to stop you no matter what. I mean, this is you now answering the call to live your dreams, folks. That's fascinating.
So a little exercise I have people do, because they go, well, I would do that, but I go, well, write it down. Write down your buts. Write all the reasons why you can't do it. Okay? And that's the first thing I have people do. Like, they go, well, I don't know. I want to, but what? Write that down. Now write down your next one. Write down every single one. Just empty it out. Make some up. Fabricate them if you have to, right? Just get it out to the point where you're like, okay, what are you left with now? You're left with, why should you? You know? And that's your decision. That's a decision you have to make yourself. But that's a good way to start it off.
Yeah, it's a great point. Yeah, get organized with it, because it can seem overwhelming. It can seem like, oh my gosh, there's just so much to do, and there's so much to learn, and especially if we're learning new languages, most people won't spend a couple of minutes a day on Duolingo to learn a language to a country they're going to and excited about, let alone free themselves from this horrific oppression, because it seems so insurmountable. So this is the saying, how to eat an elephant one bite at a time, has never been more aptly appropriated here, because this is a damn elephant, but free yourself from it by eating your way out of it, to stick with the metaphor perhaps.
Right.
Fascinating. Well, what's one of the most interesting things that you came across? Because you have so many fascinating videos, Joe, specifically on your YouTube here, or Rumble rather, about registration, jurisdiction, notaries, why those are important. Banks, they can't lend their own money. You just have a wide variety of options of things that we could talk about on there. So what's one of the most fascinating you found in this whole process?
Well, the thing that gets a lot of attention on TikTok specifically is the right to travel. Okay. Rumble kind of it's pretty evened out, but I think the people who follow me on Rumble are kind of just, they're going down this journey. They want to do this. They want their freedom. They're looking for sovereignty, and they want to have this education. So I think it kind of levels out there. TikTok, I don't know what it is, but that it seems to get a lot of the bar attorneys to show up and start arguing,
which is great.
Oh yeah, I think it's wonderful, because then it produces more content to make.
It's funny because you were telling me a story. Please tell me the story about your favorite argument you got in there. Okay,
so I'll do a video and I'll show like a code that says something about the right to travel, and it says like an automobile is a consumer good. Oh, consumer goods do not need to be registered, nor do they need a license to be operated, right? And an automobile is a consumer good, but a motor vehicle is something that's used for the transportations of passengers, property, or cargo. Passengers pay, cargo and property is a paid service. So I'll point that stuff out, and then some bartender go, listen to this guy say, oh, you need that you don't need a license to drive a motor vehicle. You absolutely do need a license to drive a motor vehicle. And I go, now, what he just said there is all legal terminology. Driving, right? I mean, driving could be just taking one thing to another place through some kind of conveyance. But to be driving, you need to have a driver, okay? And a driver is one employed. It is a job. One hired to do the transporting. So that's the first thing, a driver's license. Now you need permission, because you're going to be making money on public property. The roads are public property. They're not actually owned by the state. And that's a falsehood. When people say, well, the state owns the roads. They do not own the roads. Okay. And proof is, where do they get the money to pay for the roads? Through the gas tax. So who pays the gas tax? Everybody. It's your road.
Yeah.
It belongs to all of us. Okay. It belongs to everybody. So the state does not own it. If they own it, they have a deed that shows that they own the road. If they don't have a deed, they don't own it. Okay,
Do you
that's
think
just
there
how
could
it
be
works.
something to the electric vehicle switchover to where, since you're not giving gas, you're not providing for the payment, therefore the payment for the road management will need to be supplemented because there's no gas tax? Or is there a gas tax swap over for electric to be applied so that it can be taxed for road purposes?
They make those people pay higher registration. And that's how they supplemented that. Yeah, to balance it out. That's what they're doing.
Interesting. It'd
Yeah,
be interesting
they
if it was
got-
sort of a takeover to where they're like, yeah, it's a gas. Yeah, your money covers for the roads that you pay for with gas. Otherwise, they're our roads, right? But if there's no gas to pay for, then technically there's a big, interesting loophole within the transition to technology there.
Well, there's a bunch of reasons for them wanting to switch over to electric cars, and that is one of them. So that way they can usurp the roads from the people.
Fucking A. I knew it.
Right.
I knew it was in there. Bree, do you find this, that it's just top down, there's nonsense and everything, that you've got to go, no thank you, yes please? And you just got to kind of decide, whittle within it. Is there anything you could just take at face value and go, okay?
I mean, I don't. If something doesn't make sense, I'm not going to go along with it.
Fucking
It's
A.
just- yeah.
Well, what Joe was saying
If
was
it's
this-
not simple, it's not the truth.
And it's like you were saying earlier, was what he was saying about your interpretation. And so if you're able to then break down the driver driving, yes, I was hired as a truck driver for Anheuser-Busch for a while. I mean, I was a driver. That was a position. I was for hire. I needed a CDL license for that. But I mean, that makes sense. Now, if I'm operating a automobile, which is different than a motor vehicle, which is why the Department of Motor Vehicles exists, for you to go register it as a motor vehicle. That's fascinating. So people just get sort of conned into thinking that this is just the way that it is. It's none of this has been truer than the sentence of the most dangerous sentence ever spoken by man is, well, that's the way we've always done it. And
Yeah.
think about your mom and dad teaching you what to do when you enter these new stages of your life, how to enter the workforce and how to get a car and how to, all of those things. They're just doing what they were told.
Yeah, going back to what Joe was saying in the beginning is like, just we have to do this deconstruction, like unlearning and go back to basics with words. You know, like we were taught in elementary school that people is the plural for person. And in legalese, that's not the case. And so we're walking around as these like entities, you know, that are taxpayers and citizens because we are persons. But we're not.
Right.
We're not a person. I'm a living
right.
woman.
That's right. A great example of that is the 14th Amendment, because the 14th Amendment says all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. That's the first sentence. And it says all persons. Why don't they say all people? It's because they're not talking about human beings in that 14th Amendment.
Yeah. And the people who have learned or have been indoctrinated that person or people is plural for person, they're trying to keep everyone else who's trying to, you know, climb out of the bucket, you know, they're trying to pull them back down. Like, no, you're wrong. See it right here. You know, it says right here, see the words. And it's like, well, you don't even know the definitions of the words, do you? So we're arguing with people who are still in their indoctrination mind.
God, and it's just pervasive though, which ties into the spell casting element of this, right?
Yes.
Abracadabra literally translates to as I speak, I create. So if you are creating with doublespeak or these words that are inverted and you think that they mean something else, does the word itself is the word itself trumped by the intention, is what it sounds like with this? Because if you're unknowingly using a word, but you think it means something else, why does an intention trump literacy, do you think?
Well, because in the legal world, okay, intent is everything. A man is guilty of a crime if he intended to commit that crime, whether or not he did it, right? Attempted murder is a crime. People go to jail for attempted murder. He didn't do it. He didn't actually commit the act, but he intended to. So he goes to jail.
But where then does the rubber meet the road with the fact that we don't know the language? So therefore our intention is not what we're being represented by with the language. So therefore there's a similar ignorance there that without knowing it, but having a good intent, how are we able to navigate that?
Well, see, that's okay. So what they do, they have something called plausible deniability, because they put all that information out into the public, right? So that way, if you try to go after them later saying, hey, that wasn't my intent. My intent was this, to go, I mean, it's written right there.
But let's say, and that's interesting. This is in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy as well, when it was the plans were stored in the basement of this one building, and that's why they came to destroy our planet. Like, they were readily available for us. We just didn't have the technology or ability or wherewithal or any of the resources to be able to access the information where it was, air quotes, publicly displayed. This is honestly, I think that this is where it gets into what Bree was talking about you're already free. You're already free. You already have this. It's just that you're unwinding from it in a certain particular way because you already feel this restriction, but it was cast upon you. Again, it was this soil that you were popped into that now you're growing out of. It's just really interesting, the energetic component to all of this, just the language, everything. Let's talk trust.
I'm sure there.
Oh, please go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm sure there are some listeners who are having the self-doubt as they're breaking free, and they're like, okay, so, everybody is free then. So that means the person who wants to steal or wants to be bad, so we're just free to do anything. And it's like, well, just like Joe's saying, there's common law, there's divine law, where your intent, if you do harm and intend to do harm against someone and their property, then you have to pay for that. And then therefore you're not free, because if you are not allowing others to be in their freedom because of your actions, then you're therefore not free, right? So it's just...
Beautiful point.
Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful point. Yes, and I take for granted the emotional maturity of this audience to where we don't have to say such things, but there's new people that come across it all the time, so it's a beautiful point that you should make, and thank you for that.
Okay.
So let's talk trust. Domestic, foreign, should we have one? Should we have two? Should we have a trust for every day of the week? What's the deal with these trusts, guys?
You should have one for Monday. You should have one for Tuesday. Okay. There's a Wednesday trust. Mm-hmm. Thursday, there should definitely be two for Thursday.
Absolutely.
Okay?
One for you, one for Thor. Yeah, I get it.
No, a trust. I mean, first thing is that I don't know how many of your listeners know what a trust is, but a trust is basically just an agreement between the one who's going to fund this thing and a trustee, someone who's going to manage what assets you're going to put into that trust for the benefit of another. So it's like a three-party contract. And it's a private contract, okay? This private contract supersedes like all state regulations, laws, everything, because this is a private action between two people, a minimum of two people, okay, with a third party having an interest in it, right? Some people only need really just one trust. Some people need two. It depends on the needs of the individual, right? So all this stuff always goes back to the individual needs. Like there's a family that lives by me locally, and I was talking with the mother the other day, and she was asking something about how I run the business, and I said, well, let me show you. And I pulled out my trust agreement, right? Which she kind of was shocked to see how big it was, right? This is the book. And it's quite lengthy because I wrote it. And I said, well, it's not just the trust itself, but it's also all the trust minutes. So it has a lot of information in there, operating, how we do things. She goes, oh, where did you get that from? So, well, I wrote it myself. She goes, oh, really? And then she started talking to me about what she wanted to do with a trust. She's like, I want to get a trust one day because basically they have a home, and they're just afraid that their kids are not going to be able to hold on to it when they pass. So they want to put it into a trust to guarantee that it's protected for them and their future and future grandkids and such, right? I said, well, why don't we put your house into a trust? And she's like, okay, let's do it. Let's get going. Let's start this thing right now. So she was all fired up. That's all they need, though. They don't need that. They don't need all these other trusts for other things. They don't do investments. They don't have like family heirlooms. Nothing like that. So they just want to protect that home for their children.
That's fascinating, dude. Is this also a way where you can air quotes, protect or put under your entire business operation. So all of your business operates within this. That would then house all the materials, the cars, the structures, the tools, everything.
It could, yes. And I kind of do things a little differently. So what I do is I actually have a non-statutory membership that integrates with other people. So people come in, they join a membership. The membership has a trust that does all the treasury functions of the membership for it, right? It will hold assets for it. It will do the accounting for it. It holds bank accounts for the membership. But the trust itself exclusively does not do any business itself, but it has a lot of rules and regulations that involve the membership. So people come in, they do a donation, and part of their donation, they're given, whatever stipulated in that particular contract for free. So there is no service actually being paid for, right? It's a membership, but they get the free service, which negates any kind of tax liability of the trust, because the trust is only managing the funds of this membership.
Fascinating. Again, it's a complete new way of thinking about things. Because if you go from worker class, I make X amount of dollar a days, I have to work this much to receive this much. And it's a very narrow focus window you have on survival and a limited education on what any of this means. So again, I recommend, guys, all the ways to find both of them located down below. We haven't even talked about the amazing thing that we are doing together with the promo code and everything. Bree, I'm going to let you break that down. But guys, check this out in the show description. The memberships, the Rumbles, the TikToks, all of the things. There's a wealth of information here. Just start at the beginning. Start where the pain is. And just if there's a pain problem in your life, these two have videos and they have expertise breakdowns on them. So take a look at that first. Bree, do you want to tell us about the offer that you guys have going with your memberships?
Yes, I do want to just finish up what Joe was saying about the private membership association. Joe and I do classes on that. We have them offered, and we even do master classes if you feel like you have an idea, but you have fear of going forward because that fear of the tax man coming after you. We have a community all set up for you if you're interested. So,
perfect. Yeah.
Joe and I, from popular demand, have created a membership that we just call the Trust Membership. And because of all the classes we're teaching about trusts and PMAs, everyone has their own individual questions, and also going forward, wanting to see who else is doing it, who else has had success, where do I go to do this? I was paying attention in class, but there are all these other little details that now I'm doing it. I have these extra questions, and I don't want to pay $100 an hour, with Joe and take Joe's time just to ask these simple questions. And so we decided to just put everything together all in one place. It's a community on Stan, which is very similar to like a Facebook group. So there's socials where you can add questions and people can respond with their own experience. And it has our videos, our previous classes in there. And it's just a wealth of information for everyone to come together as a community. Because in this sovereignty space, people are learning, I don't have to be rich or have an estate to get a trust. Like now I'm learning if I want to get into the non-public side of things, then, you're going to be learning things in a non-public way. And in order to do that, you're going to have to operate through your trust. And so you can get your first month 10% off with a code EXREAL, EXREAL. And you'll also receive a free revocation of election course. It has multiple videos in there with a template that Joe created and among other things. And you will get that for free until October 1st.
Very cool. So perfect. And we, of course, have the thing on the 26th, which I'm going to be a part of, guys. So go sign up. Come hang out with us on the 26th. There's a masterclass here. Use code XREAL. That's EXREAL, all caps. Get 10% off of that, plus the ROE. I mean, how cool is that? The revocation of election template and the classes. So I'm looking forward to this. I'm so pumped about this. This is, Again,
We're
it's where
excited.
the
Yeah,
pain is.
26 is going to be our second class. So this is what you can expect in the membership. You know, besides the community, it's every single month you're going to get it's a class Q&A. Basically, there's really no agenda other than Joe is going to take you through Weiss's concise handbook and go over words and definitions and empower you with this knowledge in the first part of the class. And then we'll take Q&As from everybody and just kind of iron out anything that you've been struggling with and not sure how to get that information. Joe's going to be there with you. So yeah, that next class is September 26th. It's the last Thursday of every month. So that's what you can expect monthly.
Perfect. Absolutely love it. Joe, what are you looking forward to with all this, man? Why do you keep doing this, dude? You know?
Well, I mean, one thing is that we have a contract with the United States government, right? And that contract is called the Constitution for the United States of America. And they have not been upholding that contract. And I would really like them to, in full. And they don't. So I'll stop when they start upholding that contract again in full without any of these restrictions to it. Okay, all these state statutes that violate your rights, they're all illegal, okay? And they get away with it on a daily basis. And that needs to come to an end.
Do you think it's a lizard turd type parasitic influence that's taken over, or do you just think that guys exploited something for long enough and then just kept getting away with it, built secret factions, and just continued to exploit and subjugate?
No, we're under martial law. Okay, so
go deeper, please. I know I can't wait to hear about it.
So at the beginning of the Civil War, okay, Abraham Lincoln, who was president, issued a General Order 100, which was the implementation of martial law. It's called the Lieber Code. It was written by Francis Lieber, I think that was his name. And these are the rules that now the entire world uses, except for like one little piece in there where that says you're allowed to starve your enemies. You can't starve everybody anymore, according to the United Nations Treaty. So but outside of that, that Lieber Code is what's followed across the world for any kind of martial law. Now, according to the Constitution, the writ of habeas corpus can be suspended during times of rebellion or when the public safety requires it. Okay, that writ of habeas corpus, right, is a writ of, bringing the man or woman, right, bringing the body forward, right, releasing the person from prison. Okay, once that's suspended because of rebellion, that's exactly what was happening during the Civil War, was a rebellion of the southern states against the northern states, right? And they considered those states the rebel states. They were in rebellion against the Union because they left and went back to being the Confederacy. I say went back. People don't realize what the United States of America actually is. The United States of America is called the Confederacy. If you read the Articles of Confederation, which came from 1777, it says that this Confederacy is going to be called the United States of America. That was the original 13 colonies deciding that they're going to become states and they're going to be united together as one, right, under this Confederacy. What they then decided to do was, because this was kind of clumsy, was they formed a union of the states. A separate little thing. They gave it its own little location. Originally it was in New York City. Then they moved it. Once they were given that land over in Maryland, they were given that little piece of land and they moved that 10 square miles to the District of Columbia. Okay, but that was the union. That is the union called the United States. It is a federal corporation. Okay, and it used to be located in New York City and it moved to DC. That is the union. The states are not the union. The states are the Confederate states. That's what all of them are. And people have this misunderstanding thinking those states were the union states. No. Those states were still part of the union known as the District of Columbia. Whereas the Confederacy were the states that actually left the union to be back under the Articles of Confederation, right? So it was a whole mess. But since Lincoln declared martial law, right, the Union defeated the Confederacy, the states, to get back in. were put under military zones, okay? And only by special proclamation or by a special mention in a treaty of peace can the Libra Code be suspended. It's never been done. So we've been under martial law ever since. Lincoln died before he could actually do the special proclamation to end the martial law, right? I think everyone knows that part of the story. And it's never been made since, because after his assassination, Andrew Johnson, who became president, all kinds of stuff happened with him, and it was like a shit show that happened after that. He ended up getting impeached because he fought the 14th Amendment.
So do you think he was assassinated because he wanted to repeal or not, or sign off on it to make sure that that the Union was not? Please go ahead.
I don't know what the reason was. I mean, there's so many speculations. It could be, who knows? I don't know the real reason why he was assassinated.
That'd be kind of messed up. Have him sign the thing and then off him before he could.
It could have been to keep
so it stays
martial
in
law.
Effect. Yeah. It
could have been, because I don't think he was definitely he was against slavery, right? I think everyone here was against slavery, but. And that was a big part for the Civil War. It was states' rights, the 3/5 compromise. There's a whole bunch of things going on with that whole slavery thing, but there was a lot of that involved. The 13th Amendment was fine. The 14th Amendment was a big problem. It never got into the office of the president, who was Andrew Johnson. They removed 9 states out of the Union in order to pass the 14th Amendment. And then these states came forward saying, hey, we weren't part of this election. This was not ratified. They go, too bad. So because of martial law, they can get away with all that stuff.
And it's when persons was defined, right?
Persons was defined in 1861 or 1862 as a legal entity for the first time in the statutes at large, somewhere around that time. So right at the beginning of this whole, conflict between the states is when they retermed the definition of person to be a legal entity.
It's interesting how that kind of stuff happens, right? Like Rumsfeld, September 10th, 2001 was saying that they had 23 trillion missing dollars, and then something happened the next day that made us forget all about the fact that he said that at all, didn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, everyone stopped talking about that real quick.
Man, this is such a weird realm. Bree, what do you think about all this? Because like you're a body worker, you're an energy worker, so you see the energetic component, the tie-in, the grounding element to this freedom, but also there's a spiritual component to this. So how are you liberated and freed by this? And how does it interact? What's our relationship to these energies?
Oh, that's such a great question. I mean, because the lack of freedom is a lie, right? And disease is a lie. I mean, it's a true manifestation of a lie being present. So the lie being I don't believe I'm free, or I don't believe I'm healthy, or, I believe I'm a victim to something. And our bodies, like in body work, does display, I'm a victim of something. It could be a victim of my mind. It could be a victim of, holding on to something from the past. And, it all mirrors, our body mirrors. Our body is a projection of the mind and our spirit, and the relationship between our mind and our spirit. And, I think that once I am assisting people, because I call myself an energy worker, energy healer, body worker, I'm an assistant, right? Because I assist people in seeing the truth that's within them and something that they've been avoiding. And when it comes to body work, energy work, or sovereignty, we all see the pain on the thing that we've been avoiding or neglecting, pretending it's not there for whatever comfort we think that it brings us. So yeah, it's all related.
As you're saying this, I'm just sitting here going, oh my God, if you don't want to do the ayahuascas and the mushrooms and stuff like that to heal childhood trauma, unwind yourself from the matrix and the system, because that will heal your childhood issues with governance. And
it will.
Authority.
You don't need that stuff to heal. You don't.
That's brilliant.
I have tried some medicines in the past, twice, but it wasn't the big ones. It's not the big mother. It's not the big stuff. But it was enough for me to actually see beyond what I've been told what is reality. And that's all I need. It's like, you don't need to keep visiting that, do you? Like you already know. And so therefore work with what you are given. Like, we are here as human beings to work through our humanness, not to like go into the beyond and discover what is beyond this humanness. Like, we need to come back into here presence with our body. What is the pain? What is being manifested? And that's what's real. And when you address that and care for it so lovingly with grace, you set that free. And then you heal.
Yes. Joe, what do you think about this? Have you found some correlation to releasing trauma as you release yourself from the matrix?
Yeah, absolutely. There were things like, like when I was telling you about when I went to jail for talking, essentially what happened was someone threw something out of a truck. It almost hit me in the head. I started cursing at the guy. The cops came and arrested me for disorderly conduct. They didn't bother to go after the guy who was actually throwing stuff at people. They decided to arrest me because I yelled a curse word at the guy. When I went to court, the judge says to me, he asked me, how do I plead? I said, well, not guilty. I mean, I got First Amendment rights. I have a right to, I have freedom of speech. They arrested me for that. That's a violation. And he yelled at me and told me not to bring up the Constitution in his courtroom. And subsequently, I went to jail for it. And, that tore me down. But it filled me with rage. I was filled with like rage and anger and bitterness that I've been lied to my whole life. And it was, I tell you, I probably went into that courtroom about 12 times in my life. Okay. And it was probably about the third or fourth time I went in there where he said, no, you're going to jail now. I'm tired of you. And it's for the same charge over and over again. Because he ordered me to do community service. I refused. I got a second disorderly conduct charge for virtually the same thing. I refused to do it again. I went a third time because I got arrested for having a knife on me. And they wanted to throw me in jail for 5 years for having a knife, right? I got the knife charge dropped because they didn't have reason to search me because I started learning my rights by that point. But he was like, you haven't done your community service, you're going to jail. So I went to jail for talking. And of course, the freeing moment was when I went into court one day and I said something to the judge and he stood up and closed the courtroom down and kicked everybody out and made me stay, and made the cops stay because the cops showed up. He made the cops stay there. He made me stay. He kicked everybody else out. He dismissed every case. He said, everyone who's here right now for a case, your case is dismissed. Get out. Kicked everybody out. It was just me, the officer, and the prosecutor. Him and the clerk. I think the bailiff was there. I don't know because I didn't turn around because I was kind of like, oh God, what's about to happen, right? I thought that was it. I thought they were going to lock me in like some private room forever after that. But he turns to the officer, and now this is something very interesting. You will never hear a judge say this, but he said this to the cop. He says, take a look at that man, pointing to me. Judges never call the defendant, a man or woman. Never. So this was a first. He goes, take a look at this man. You see him? Get a good look at this man, because if this man is ever in my courtroom again, you're losing your job. I do not want him in my courtroom. I do not want you to bring him into my courtroom. If you write any tickets for this man, if I see this man's name on any ticket or summons or anything, you're losing your job. I do not want him in here. He is creating a big problem, and you are looking really bad right now because he's got you 3 times in a row. Don't bring him in here. And then he looked at me. He goes, you can go. Your charges are being dismissed. I don't want to see you in here again. I'm done. That was it.
How much taller were you when you walked out of the courtroom that day? You grew, what, 5-6 inches at least?
I was like, Shaq was looking up at me for a little bit. Like, yeah, that's how I felt. I was like, my head was spinning. And what was really funny was that the DA came out afterwards and he says, dude, I got to stop you for a second. And I'm like, what? He goes, no. I want to shake your hand. He says, that what you did in there was amazing. I've never seen the judge do that before, man. He's like, I know you're saying some things that are kind of borderline, but man, you had these guys cold. You got them good. He's like, you're good, man. I appreciate what you did in there. The DA apparently didn't like the cops. He's had a lot of problem with them, apparently. So he was very happy about me sticking it to the cops.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Bree, have you had a moment like that yet? Or are you looking forward to a moment like that? Like, do you find yourself like ready to go challenge something like that? Or are you cool just hearing Joe's stories about it and staying out of the courts?
You know, I have two answers to that. One, I believe that Joe was sent here to like really get picked on so that he can, you know, because he's qualified to go up against them. Yeah. And he is meant to lead us. Me, on the other hand, I feel like I respect that. And I'm just like, because I've been in a courtroom and I've been cross-examined. That's not fun. So I can hold my own. I know that. But it's one of those things energetically where I have allowed myself to operate with a protective bubble, and I pray and bless myself with this protective bubble, not out of fear of being, you know, put into a position that is not nice, but because I do not care to be harassed. I've been through what I've needed to go through in order to find what is my message here on earth, at least in this part of my life, in this chapter. And I've been through those refining moments in the same sense that Joe has been through his refining moments in this sovereignty. I'm sure there's more to come, but yeah, it's sovereignty. This sovereignty space, I feel, isn't necessarily my realm to be challenged. But if I am, I know that, you know, I've got the divine on my side. So yeah, I'm not looking forward to it. I don't want to get in a boxing ring. I don't want to fight anyone. I expect to be protected no matter what the case is. And that's all I can say.
Thanking it in advance for being present in your life and ubiquitous. It's like, yeah, duh, it's right there. Thanks. Very cool.
Yeah.
Because this is outstanding. Is there anything that you guys wanted to touch on before we close out and get to our afterthought here? I wanted to make sure we covered all the things that you guys wanted to in this section of it. I want to remind the audience, of course, that all the ways to find them both located down below, as well as our X Real, EXREAL there. All right. EX Real, located down in the show description, 10% off, and the free revocation of election template and class. Guys, I'll be there on the 26th, so come hang out with me, come hang out with us, get your empowerment on. And like I said, is there anything that you guys wanted to make sure that we got in before we wrapped? Dope. How about we go to the afterthought here? But before we let you guys run, reminder again, they're linked below. Bree, what gets you up out of bed every single morning?
Depends on what day it is.
Okay, fair enough. It's situationally dependent on the day. What a Virgo answer, by the way. Because my days are planned ahead, and I get excited about the different things that are on my calendar. And yeah, it's usually Pilates. Okay. That's perfect. I like to get up and move my body. We love it. Yeah. Move the energy around, right? Energy in motion. Joe, last words on you, Bubba. What gets you out of bed every single morning, keeps you moving forward? Why do you do it?
My family.
Just want to take a moment here and thank those incredibly amazing souls for coming by and just empowering the shit out of all of us. Bree Divine and Joe Lustica's socials and all the ways to find them are located down in the show description. As you were checking down there, if you are ready to make some moves, come join us for the Trust membership. Now, just for being a listener of this show, they have offered a special discount for you guys to invest in yourselves. So go to the Trust membership link down in the show description, type EXREAL, all caps, no spaces, EXREAL at checkout. You'll get 10% off of that first month there. Come join us, guys. The next one is the 26th of September here. So a couple of days, I will be there. Hopefully you will be there as well. And if not, that's okay. You know, make the moves as you make them. Absolutely educate yourself. Nobody here is pushing you to hurry anything up, but some active information is available, and definitely be empowering yourself with that. Now, check the link down in the show description as well to join us for the Afterthought, where we just keep going, guys. There's so much information to this. We continue it. I get to ask a bunch of fun questions. They answer the shit out of them, and it's fun and amazing and incredibly knowledgeable. So go check it out down in the show description. Join us for the Trust community. Join us for the Afterthoughts. Before I let you go here, just want to thank everybody for all that you are doing. This is a wild time in a wild, inherently wild realm anyway, right? So just continue to move forward with grace and ease, and if it's not graceful, that's okay. Just keep moving forward. Love the shit out of all of you guys, honestly. There's just something big shifting, something big happening. All of it's wild and weird, and so let's just keep moving forward with honor and integrity, and keep moving forward, doing your best, okay? I know I keep saying that, keep moving forward, but I feel it's important. So we're gonna keep saying it, keep doing it. Before I let you go here as well, go out into this beautiful world and pick up a piece of litter, get out of the left-hand lane and get somebody behind you wanting to pass, but above all, and anything else, just be good to everybody that you come across. Be good to everyone. That's it. Love you guys from the bottom of my heart. Thanks for liking, subscribing, sharing, all the good stuff. We'll see you at the Trust thing on Thursday. And either way, we'll see you next time.